What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Y.D.O.C Live podcast. If you're new here, my name is Chimji Caleb Chukun.
My name is Brandon Maroney.
And this is our second episode.
Yes, sir.
We actually filmed a previous episode, but we're thinking, it's Valentine's Day. We already had this on the list. Why not talk about it now? So
yeah, because we won't have an opportunity to do this, and we didn't think about this beforehand. So you'll hear our next episode is going to be on forgiveness, and so that one's already recorded. But we didn't really think about Valentine's Day, and so what better love to talk about than God's love?
Honestly, and we're still getting the hang of this, so bear with us. But
one step at a time, baby.
Yeah. So I guess a question would be,
well, before we start, how was your week, bro?
Oh, I mean, it was all right.
Sounds like a little ups and downs in there.
Yeah, I had some ups and downs. I went to Regen yesterday.
Amen.
And unfortunately fell yesterday. Oh, not yesterday, Sunday. TikTok, but
if anybody of you that don't know what Regen is I went through it. I didn't finish it, but I went through the process all the way to step 4, which was inventory. Well, Regen is a process that basically brings to light everything that you're struggling with, and kind of you just work through it and use tools and things like that. And one thing that I love about regeneration is once you finish Regen, it's a year-long course. So you got to buckle in for that. And it sucks, in all honesty. It is the worst, but it is the best program.
I didn't know JP, his church is one that started that.
No, Watermark did.
Yeah, that's his church.
But he's at Harris Creek now. But so Watermark started the Porch. It started Regen. It started the Torch. Watermark is the church to start programs.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And so JP, don't get me wrong, I think he interned at, I'm not even gonna say it because I could be 100% off. But I know he was at the Porch, and then he does. But now he's at his own church that I listen to every single one of his freaking podcasts. So
Jared sent me his podcast episode a week or two ago.
No, you have to listen to it. I thought I sent you Becoming Something.
Maybe, bro.
Okay, we are hyping up another podcast here. Out the window, please ignore everything you just said. But it's a really cool process that you get to dive deeper and learn tools that you get to help if you fall or things like that. And we're not perfect. And so one thing that I love about Regen is you don't graduate, but you commence. So it's you did this year process, you did it, but we're still going to struggle, we're still going to fall, but you did it. And so now you have the tools, now you have everything like this. And so I think Regen's a really cool aspect. And so I love it. I've been trying to get it.
It's doing, it's walking in faith and community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
honestly.
So it's a really cool process. So that's awesome. I'm glad that you're starting that.
Yeah. Kyle, bro, because I don't know, me and Johnny talked about it months ago, and I just didn't go back then. But Kyle was talking about it, and
is Kyle going?
Yeah, he's going. And he kind of talked me into it. I was like, all right, I'll go. And it was good. It was really good. And it's biblical based, all that. So
it's biblical based when Brad Bell puts it.
Yeah.
All right. So my week.
Yeah, how's your week?
Is pretty good. However, I did have Valentine's Day. So when you guys release this, today is Valentine's Day that we are recording. It'll upload tomorrow. But I celebrated Valentine's Day yesterday. My week was really good. I didn't really have any lows. It was I got to work. I got to go up to Davis to see Emily. And then sadly though, we went to Ruth Chris last night, and she ended up getting sick after we ate, and
my boy spent $200.
Yeah, so Ruth Chris isn't cheap, and so to have somebody get sick after that is kind of a punch in the gut. Man, we could have just went to Taco Bell and had the exact same experience.
Yeah.
So,
dang.
But in all honesty, up until that point, it was amazing. There was roses on the table. Ruth Chris is nice. I've never been before, and so it was a cool experience to experience, and I'm glad the first time I got to do it was with her. But other than that, week's been good. I drove 3 hours this morning to get here for this podcast.
My boy, bro. Every time we go on a road trip, he's the one driving. Honestly.
Amen.
Not me.
I
I love driving, but not me.
I just drive, bro. It's just when you have family in San Diego. I've driven to Idaho. Like,
You know, I have an uncle that lives in San Diego.
really?
I have an uncle that lives in San Diego, and my aunt lives in LA in the hills. Yeah.
Hey, that's pretty dope.
We gotta go out. We gotta go out there, bro.
She live in the hills?
Yeah, we were almost gonna go out there when you remember the fires that were starting in Shaver back then. We were gonna go out there in 2020 when those fires, but we didn't end up going. So
Hey, I didn't know, Caleb, you would like that.
I'm not, bro. It's just my aunt. It's just my aunt, bro.
All right,
It's
so
just my aunt.
God's love, Caleb. What can you, if you had to tell me one thing, if a random person on the side of the street said, "What is God's love?" What are you saying?
I think I would start with the fact that it's sacrificial. You know, a lot of times when we talk about love and, well, not us, but like culturally, you know, people talk about love and it's always I-centered. It's always me-centered. It's always, how can I do this for me? How can I, how self-seeking. But God in his love, he came to die for his enemies, you know, and true biblical love isn't a love that seeks your own desires, your own. It's not self-seeking, but true biblical love is sacrificial, and you even see that when it talks about, you know, marriage and various other things.
Yeah, and I love how you said that, man. Like you talk about, like, we were enemies of God, and like I don't know about you guys, but that's something I'm kind of I'll forfeit that fight. White flag real fast.
For sure.
And you know, I think that's something that a lot of, you know, churches don't even talk about because it's kind of like the scary aspect of it, of like, and then things like that. But so for me, I think the first thing that I ever think about when I think of God's love is the Bible.
Yeah.
Because it's a love letter.
Yeah.
And so I don't know about you guys, but like every letter I've ever written to somebody, you know, let's talk about it in a woman's.
Have you ever written a love letter?
100%. Well, you got a problem with love letters, bro? And you know, my girlfriend, she loves letters.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when they get all emotional and get all like that's the aspect that I feel with the Bible. Like there's moments when I read it and like I feel like at an all-time low, like, oh man, I'm not following this to the T.
Yeah.
And then there's moments where I'm like on a high hill. And so I think that's like the version of a love letter. Like you can get in those emotions and you can get things like that, but that is God's love letter for us. Like that is how we get closer to him in a relationship. And so that's always like my first thought of when I think of that, because then you think of John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so like Jesus is that. Jesus was there in the beginning. Jesus was there, sacrificed us. He's still with us today. Like he is the Word. And so I think that's where my head always goes, is just a love letter.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You know, I was like I was telling you before, but I was watching a video about a biblical worldview of love from. If you don't know these people, amazing apologists, Elisa Childers and Sean McDowell. Highly suggest them. But I was watching a video on their an episode they were talking about biblical worldview of love, and Sean McDowell said he said a lot of things. They both did, but I first want to start off with he talked about chasing love, seeking God, and seeking others first. When you chase love for your own motives, honestly, a lot of times it hurts people. And, you know, we know it from the world. You know, when you chase love just for your own self-gratification, you end up hurting the other person, whether you're a boy or you're a girl. And it always ends bad. You end up empty.
Yep.
You end up not being satisfied with what you thought that would satisfy you. And true love, honestly, first starts with seeking God. And what branches from that is loving others as well.
No, that's a fact. And I think what I think people often miss is the choice, like the biggest, like love, when in a human perspective, right? Let's take out the God perspective.
Yeah.
Like when you think of love, when I think of love, I think of like, oh, I'm going to take a bullet from my mom.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's it. Or like my family, or like my sisters and stuff like that. And so like love for us is an action. you know, a lot of the times when we're growing up, you often think of it's like a verb, like it's a feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
However, when you start to get older and you start to like understand a little more, like then love turns into action. So like our version of love changes over time with us. However, God's love isn't just an action that he has shown us. It's like who he is.
Ooh.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, because we can, like, you know, God is, you know, merciful. He's holiness. He's righteousness. He's wrathful. He's fearful.
Yeah.
But God is love. So, in that aspect, you know, and we're, you know, when we're made in his likeness, we can understand a perspective, but a human perspective of what love is.
Yeah.
And so I think that is like, for me, it's just like a huge aspect to it. And you got a big smile on your face, so I feel like you got something for me.
Nah, it's just what you're saying is facts. You know, it brings me back to obviously the verse that said, God is love. And, you know, I think, you know, especially in our world today, you know, we do miss the definition of what love is because that definition is always seemingly changing.
Right.
But when we go back to what scripture says, let's pull up 1 Corinthians 13 right now.
Let's do it.
Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It's not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And that's what the Bible defines as love. And honestly, I can't love perfectly when you really look at that.
You can't. And that's such a beautiful aspect, though.
Yeah. And another thing that Sean McDowell said is the question of how you approach, because at the end of the day, you know, we grow up, we want to love and be loved. I think we're created to do that. And that's ingrained ever since creation. But, you know, when it comes to, you know, marriage and relationships and just various things, sex, all that, the question of how you approach marriage, love, and sex is a smaller subpoint of how you approach your entire life. And I feel like, you know, if you understand what love is, from just the point of it being sacrificing, it's not just a feeling, then you can approach, you know, these other areas of your life in a loving way. He then goes on to say, if your life is about living for God and other people, then if you're married, your marriage will line up. You're not going to then be duping people and various things like that. But it was a good episode.
Yeah, and so it sounds like the center of everything needs to be God in that aspect.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where the beauty is like when we talk about like I want to go back on the perspective, like the free will perspective, like, you know, if God were to show himself right now, come down in all glory that he has, every non-believer would have to bow down before him. But we get the choice. Like, love is a choice. And that's like the cool aspect of like, we get to choose Christ because Christ chose us. Yeah. And so like it says in Romans, you know, shout out to Jared for preaching on this.
I had that one.
Romans 8:29. When it says, for those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to his image of his son, that he might be firstborn among many brothers and sisters.
Oh, I didn't write that one down. Never mind.
Hey, you know, see? But it's just saying there, like, we were predestined and conformed. Like, before we were even a thought, like, when Adam and Eve were built, when created, we were already in his mind. Yeah. And so, and that's, like, the beauty of it. Like, you know, obviously, I wouldn't want Adam and Eve to fall, right? That's, you know, brought sin in the world, all the corruption and things like that. I wouldn't want that. But everything happens for a reason. Like, all things come to his good. And I think that's a
all
great...
All things come to his good.
All things are... you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
It's still in that verse.
That's a blooper right there.
Hey.
But, yeah, I understand what you mean, man. Now, I do want to ask you, though. So, we touched on it a little bit. But what would you have to say for people who are trying to chase love, but seemingly come short, and they're chasing the feeling, they're chasing various things that do seem to be their definition of love, but it always ends up short. What would you say to that?
I think the thing is nothing is going to fulfill you the way Christ can. And I know that's like often like the easy biblical Christian answer and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like from somebody who is, searched in every aspect that you can think of. I've searched, we're eventually going to talk about baggage and we'll get more into that. But like, for me, I was chasing women, like I was chasing sex, I was chasing like if it was porn, I was smoking, I was drinking, like there was things that I was doing to try to seek that. And so like when people always ask me like what changed, it's an easy answer, but yes, it's the easy typical Christian answer, but it's the easy answer, like Christ.
Not just the easy answer, but it's the only answer.
Yeah, and
honestly.
so people always want me to like go on this long like ramp, and thankfully I have a story. And, I think that's why God gave it to me, is because I get to preach on it. However, like I've had a lot of, if I'm being honest, I didn't think I'd live past 25. But now that the road that I'm on, like I'm here, I'm living, and I'm living for Christ. And so I just think it's such a beautiful thing. And like when people are in those moments and searching for things, they need to understand as well as like when you're in that moment of like lost and finding love, like there's never going to be a man, there's never going to be a woman who can fulfill those needs.
Yeah.
Like I am so sorry. Unless you have a relationship fully built around Christ, you too, there's going to be a wedge in between.
I think that's also why, divorce rate is up. Various other things in our current world are different from back then because we've gotten away from our foundation of Christ.
Yeah.
And honestly, God, if God is real, which we both believe he is, and there's so much evidence to that, but if there is a creator and he created us, he would create us to want him. And it's not to say that God is creating us against our own will, because ultimately we have the free will to choose whether we want to follow him or not. But the truth is that we were created to glorify him, and that's our purpose in life. And without realizing that purpose, without living out that purpose, then nothing we do will ultimately fulfill us. It's like, and I was going to say an analogy, but I don't think it's a good analogy. No, it's just, it's like trying to fit, I don't know, it's trying to fit a piece that doesn't belong. It's trying to fit a piece.
So you're trying to tell me right now, let's put this in an easier perspective.
Yeah.
So you're telling me if I break a vase and I break a cup and I try to use vase pieces to put back together the cup, it
won't fit.
Exactly.
It won't fit. And
there's a little better.
My mind works different. Like,
hey, I understand what you're saying, so that's why we put it in a little perspective. And so when you're talking about like the purpose, then our purpose is to live out the will of God. And what are the 2 commandments that we're called to say? What does Jesus say?
He said, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself.
That's it. The greatest 2 commandments are right there. Yeah. And both of those say love.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to write a verse down that I really love. Play on words there.
And so I think one perspective as well is like when we go back to those people, like, and if you are that broken person, if you are that person that is just trying to find a void, Romans 5:8 is just something that I latched onto. It was funny because we both wrote down the exact same verse, so I'm going to steal it first and say it before Homeboy.
Go ahead, bro.
But it says, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And so, I said this, you'll actually hear me say it on the next podcast, so we're just going to run it back to back. Like Christ died before we were sinners. He died for us when we're after sinners. Like he died for every single sin that we commit. And so like his love is
past, present, and future.
Yeah. And it's just a big viewpoint of John 3:16. Like I think that would probably be for me the verse that I would cling on to the most of like showing love.
Yeah. For
God so loved the world, right? That he gave his only son. And I don't know about you guys, but like I I won't ever know the father's love until I have a kid. And that's just like a little glimpse, like we hear, right? And stuff. And so that's just something I'm never going to understand. But okay, let's put it in perspective like my little sisters. Okay, my 2 little sisters are my world. Okay, I would do anything for Bella and Abby. However, if you told me that I needed to sacrifice my sisters for the greater good for somebody else, nope.
Nah, bro.
Sorry. Because my selfish desires are like, I love these kids too much.
And not even just that. Like, I feel like I just, like, I feel like that would be selfish in and of itself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it'd be bad.
Right. So it's just like an easy thing. And anybody listening, like, this is the same thing. Like, can you give up something like, okay, let's really touch some people's hearts. Could you kill a dog for something like that?
Bro,
Oh, no.
Most people act like dogs are like more valuable than humans.
Exactly. And
That's so crazy to me, dog.
And so that's one aspect right